You're listening to live streaming right here from sunny Northport, Florida. I am sitting in the parking lot, believe it or not, of Florida Cancer Specialists. I've got a customer and a friend who I'm going with him to his appointment today. So I'm actually sitting in my truck doing this live streaming, and I've got a really good friend, Mr. Michael. How you doing?
Good, thank you.
So give an overview of who you are and what department you work for and why we're doing this today.
So I'm Mike Vuolo. I'm the Assistant Utilities Director for Operation and Maintenance. And I basically oversee the wastewater treatment facilities and the collection and distribution system. So basically everything that goes on in the operation and maintenance realm of utilities is in my realm. We have a great team, and we're really here today to talk about F.O.G, fats, oils, and grease. The acronym we use is F.O.G, because it really impacts our wastewater system and our wastewater treatment plants. It creates a lot of issues as far as blockages, and it could damage some pumps and some issues. So I wanted to get out there and talk about that. We are in the process of bringing back a F.O.G ordinance, which is basically governing what we do in the fats, oils, and grease realm. It is regulated by the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. There's a Senate bill that was just recently passed within the last few years, Senate Bill 1110, and it relates to how grease is handled and how grease is disposed of properly.
Why should the citizens of Northport, on a taxpayer dollar sense, right? Why should they pay attention to what they put down their drain?
Well, everything costs money. We have to manage it, and in the wastewater realm, we're limiting the impacts to the environment, and that our regulators, Department of Environmental Protection. So, as we have our regulations come down from the state and the DEP, we have to enforce and uphold their standards. And when we cannot impact the environment, and we have to minimize at all risks what we do. So if we have to go and clean the lines more because there's oil or there's blockages, or there is a backup, I could tell you the last 2 weeks we actually had to have 8,200 gallons pumped off the headworks at one of our wastewater treatment facilities because it was starting to block up the headworks. And it costs money when we have to bring somebody in to actually get that taken care of. So it does cost money to do that. And if everybody chips in, and it all comes down to the rates and what we pay and how we minimize our impact.
And so let's talk about that dollar for a minute, because everything that goes down the drain has a cause and effect. And we're talking the pumping out of a system, right? And and making it flow like a household septic tank would, right?
Absolutely.
So, go ahead.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you are on a septic tank or you're on a centralized sewer system. It still impacts the same. It creates the blockages. It'll actually take up capacity in your septic tank itself. And then a bigger issue happens if it flows through your septic tank and gets to your drain field. Now you have to replace that drain field because you lost your capacity in your drain field because of that blockage. It's pretty much the same process in a centralized system. We start, clogging up pipes. It's almost like your veins in your body and your arteries, I should say, because you have a heart attack, you have, your arteries clog. It's the same process. You got to keep it healthy, keep it clean, do what you can. But everybody just, and when we get into it, there'll be a frequency of inspections and looking back, Northport was always a bedroom community. I can tell you we're not a bedroom community anymore. We have grown by leaps and bounds. We have a lot of commercial development, restaurants that have happened, which is very important that, we get ahead of this and we get these ordinances in place to protect the system, to protect the environment, to protect the watersheds, and how we're, impacting our surrounding communities as well.
So this is all part of the group that's out there that wants to slow growth. This has the potential to talk directly to them. It has a potential to talk to the people who are wanting more growth, and talk to them directly. This is sort of that topic that we've got to look at the environmental side. We've got to look at cost effectiveness of everything. We've got to address what 70% of our city is, which is septic tank. And that's not going away. That's not going to change out. We've kind of gone through that phase where we've put it out there and said it's coming. Well, inevitably it is coming. The sewer lines and everything. There's just a big number that comes with all of those things. And how do you pay for it? How do you restructure it? In line with this, though, can you talk about when you have to pump it out, and you say it comes at a cost? That directly affects the way you guys do daily business for us, the consumer of water and sewer, correct?
Correct. I mean, we only have so many customers and so many connections, and utilities is an enterprise fund. So only those who are paying the utility bills are paying the utility fund, so to say. And the money gets reinvested back into the utility. So if we have capital improvement projects, or we have other areas within the budget, and if we have to start pumping and cleaning more, that impacts the overall, how do we improve things? And because we have about 24, almost 25,000 service connections. So when you have the amount of infrastructure that we have with two wastewater plants, 2 water plants, there's only so much money to go around that has to be balanced. So when these things start impacting the overall normal operation, then it does take away. You have to take it from somewhere, because you only have so much money to deal with.
So I want to talk about the financial impact that dumping grease and oils and different things down your drain bring. When you bring this truck in and they clean out the line, and would you say 8,000 gallons?
Yes, 8,200 gallons was pumped off the headworks just last week from our wastewater plant.
So I need you to dive into just that statement and explain what you just said for the consumers, in layman's terms.
Well, that is a big issue for the simple. If we plug up the lines, or if we have spills, it leads to consent orders. We have a consent order now, which we have to fix an effluent pipeline at our wastewater facility, and that's a $17 million project that we're funding, and it's regulated through the state, and they're giving us timelines to complete that. The same thing's going to happen with this fog, and if we don't get this under control, there could be another consent order that comes down the line. And then it's not, hey, we don't have the money. It's, hey, you're going to do this project, find the money. So a lot of other things get shifted and moved, especially with the growth. That's hard to manage when we're trying to, plan out the future. We know there's a lot going on in the Toledo Blade Corridor, Activity Center 6 and 10, and there's a lot of conversations there. So as you're taking up this capacity and using these funds, and not addressing this fog situation that we have, it's going to impact the overall operations and funding of the utility.
How does the hospital play into this on Sumter? Are they self-sufficient? They self-contained with water, or how are we addressing that with them, since they're going to be one of the bigger, I think, contributors to what goes down our drains, just in pure volume. Go ahead.
Yes, they're going to be connected to the water and sewer system. So that was part of some of the grant funding we got to run the lines at the interstate, the interchanges, Sumter and Toledo Blade. But yes, so they do have on site. They do have a grease interceptor that they will install. We will also manage that. There's a lift station that they'll be installing. So that's our first warning sign, is those lift stations. And sorry about that, my phone was ringing. So there is an on-site. So what our ordinance is going to do, it's going to set up the frequency of inspections. It's going to give us the ability to, check the manifest, make sure that the interceptors are maintained properly, and really these are, they have to be pumped out. They have to be inspected every 90 days and pumped out every 90 days as part of the ordinance. Right now, that we have nothing in the city that has them do anything with their grease interceptors. So sometimes, and it is required in the building code that commercial development of that size, especially SMH, that they have grease interceptors, which then can be pumped out, which actually handles the majority of the grease, hopefully all of it.
Okay. Well, that's good to know, because we're at least preparing for future growth the right way. You said that we have to do a better job at messaging about this topic. Explain that and so that citizens understand what we're doing today.
Yes, and we've been talking a lot about commercial, but it's not only commercial, it's residential too. I mean, it's easy, especially when you have a garbage disposal under your sink and you scrape everything in the sink and send it through the garbage disposal. There's a lot of fats, oils, and greases in that. So just getting the word out of the upcoming ordinance that we have coming, the impacts of fog on a wastewater system, and, can the grease, throw it away. We just, we got to do a better job of reaching out to show what the impacts are, and to show how that could affect the rates of the utility as well, because we have to manage it. We're regulated by the Department of Environmental Protection. We have to manage that. And if it's not started to be managed better at the homeowner and business level, we have to manage that utility, which then impacts the rate of the utility. And we don't want to do that. We'd rather take what we have existing and reinvest it in capital improvement programs, capital improvement projects that are going to better the utility, that's going to be better technology, and basically save money in the long run, versus, just going out and cleaning lines and just doing the same thing.
Well, we have a ton of experience. And I've heard our city manager, Jerome Fletcher, brag. I've heard staff brag that they're educated, they're well-informed, across the board, and understanding how much I've been with them when they go out and talk into the community and show their experience. This has a lot to do with addressing these needs before it gets to the next level, which is having somebody govern down. We don't want that governance down. We want that governance at home. And we want you guys with this experience and this massive amount of experience. I talk about Frank Lama like constantly as the man with the experience when it comes to recycling. We're now talking about our water and sewer systems, and we're trying to bring everybody up to speed in a short period of time, but keeping that knowledge with the experience and understanding what you guys are doing. It's like the new plant. Oh gosh, why did it just went out of my head? But the needs of public works at recycling and debris, their transfer station.
Transfer station, yeah. Yes.
So I talked myself right into that, but the transfer station, that comes at a cost, but it comes at a net gain, because at the end of the day, you guys are looking at the totality of the expense at the same time, how fast can we pay it back? Well,
Right.
it is the same thing that you're doing with
It
this.
it
Go
is the
ahead.
same, exactly. And it's like, and 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 that's just it is, and we don't want to use our resources and the money towards something like this when we can correct it individually. We can correct this. Each homeowner can help correct this issue, and that money doesn't need to be spent in this area. So we don't want our rates to be raised just to address a fog program when everybody collectively can make it an improvement and make an impact on it. And then that way those resources can be used for another item that's necessary for, like I said, an expansion, or anything that's with the future growth or something with the city. We have to think longer term of those impacts. And if everybody just does their little part, it makes a big impact to the community.
Well, we have to look at things different too, because 70% of our population here is serviced by septic. And
That's correct.
that's one side of the EPA side of looking at things. With the flooding that we had, that layers that complication. I'm sure since we had the flooding on such a national scale that was out there, um, Ron DeSantis being out here flying over, seeing all the water over septic tanks, I'm sure that those check marks started going off on people's pages like crazy, for regulation that way.
Yeah.
Um,
And as part of the Clean Waterway Act, the Senate Bill 712, it addressed a lot of those concerns, because that was the Clean Water Act. And they are looking at the watershed, the water flow. Everything in Northport actually flows right out to Charlotte Harbor.
sure does.
And that is one of the biggest estuaries in the state of Florida. It's one of the biggest harbors. I think it's the fourth largest harbor in the state of Florida. So what we do in Northport impacts other communities and other environmental areas. So that's where we had to come up with a septic to sewer program. And then in December of 2024, the DOH no longer oversees septic tanks. That has been transferred to the Department of Environmental Protection. We do have to
That's a big
report
change,
on
though, isn't it?
excuse me.
I said that's a big change, isn't it?
That is a big change because the health department was looking at health and human safety in a home. Okay, there's not, you flush your toilet, yes, it goes away. It's outside, your house is safe. Now the Department of Environmental Protection wants to know what impacts are happening with the environment because of that. We know there's nitrogen in it. We know there's ammonia in it. And it does all leach into the ground and the soil. So potentially at build out, we could have roughly 60,000 septic tanks out there, which could be a big impact to the environment. And I know, some people remember back, several years ago, Cape Coral had a big issue with the blue-green algae and the green slime, and that's what the nitrogen will do to our canals. It'll create that algae growth. It'll create that slime that we don't want here. So that's what the Clean Waterway Act, Senate Bill 712, is focusing on. But like you said, there's a financial cost to that as
Right.
well. That's a big, big impact. We looked at it and it was like a $500 million project for Northport. And, nobody has that kind of money laying around.
Oh, come on. Let's just write a check and get it done. Such an easy task.
But there, with some of those mandates, they are working on grant funding through the state. They're working on some initiatives. We have put ourselves in a good position to receive grant funding for that. We actually received $2.3 million in grant funds this past year for our vacuum sewer station as part of the first phase of the septic to sewer in the Salford area. So they are starting to free up a little bit of that money, and we did qualify for 2.3. in that first phase. So
Well,
that is a positive.
so I think it's like everything else. I think when you're working to strive towards the common goal, um, the federal government, state might give you a little more lenience as long as you're. I love the word that you use, because when people hear it, they just shrink. Mandates, those mandates, uh, they don't come from our city commission or our city manager, Jerome Flesher. They come from above. And when those mandates come down, those are handled by you guys totally different, correct?
Oh yes, yeah. Ours are regulatory as far as, and I could tell you they just recently implemented a collection system action plan through the state level. So now we have to send a report in every year we have to do an expenditure report. They want to know how much money we're reinvesting into our wastewater system, how much we're spending on I&I work to make sure we're not, collecting rainwater when we shouldn't be. And, our treatment facilities, are we keeping them updated, upgraded, making sure we don't have 1950s technology out there when, there's something that should be improved upon or a better process that we should be looking at. So, those mandates are new rules for us to follow.
Yep.
They don't always come with funding, which is where we have to help educate, help, to try to make the best of the situation that we can to meet our regulatory compliance as well.
And as long as we, and I say this, we collectively as citizens of the city of Northport, as long as we're striving to hit that mark. I live in Lakeside Plantation. There should be no oils dumped down the drain at all. And I jokingly say this, but for sure, just going to the beach and coming home and showering in your shower, if you use any type of oils, any type of baby oil, whatever you're going to use, the outside shower is the best place to take that shower, and that's a small dose of what we're talking about. But we live in the state of Florida, and if you times that over 365 days, that's a lot of chemical that you're washing off your body and putting down the drain, let alone what you're cooking with. Are we talking the same language there?
Yeah, I mean, it does impact. The oil is oil. I mean, it emulsifies. It'll solidify is what happens. So once it kind of clumps up, that's where it creates those issues. But yeah, oil in the system it's just not good. The fats, the oils, the grease. Whenever you can, just scrape things into the garbage can. I know Frank Lama would love that, so he loves collecting his garbage. So
Garbage can is one thing. Do not put it in your recycle bin.
Exactly.
That
Don't
glass
put it in the
jar,
recycle bin.
that glass jar that you're using to collect your grease, it's not recyclable. Put it in the trash can. So that I would love to have Frank. I would love to see his face right now during this conversation, because one of the things I'd like to do with you maybe in a month or so is go to the water treatment plant and do a live walkthrough and show people how our system works and how this affects it.
Sure,
Would that be
absolutely.
possible to do?
Absolutely, we could do that. Yes, we
Yeah,
could walk through. I could take you through the headworks, what we have coming in, and how it's treated through the entire process and the end result after it's treated. So, and the hardest thing to do is, yes, they have emulsifiers out there. Yes, they have other things that break grease down. The problem is it never gets treated and it never gets removed. So no matter what, through the process, we have what we call pop-ups, or we have these bergs, fat bergs. They kind of clumps of grease that come together that we still have to address, regardless of the whole process. We still, and emulsifying is one thing, but it doesn't work. It's not the long-term solution. The longer-term solution is, just helping everybody understand the impacts and everybody doing their part to help minimize that impact on the region and the utility, and not even the utility, their own home and their own impacts. Because really it's a financial impact no matter how you look at it, whether it's, septic tank and a well, or it's municipal. The grease is going to take up capacity. It's going to clog your system. It's going to clog so we just have to do a better job educating on that. And that's what we want to start doing, is just getting the word out. Let's try to minimize what we can. Let's think about it when we are cooking and when we are cleaning. How do we dispose of it? Can we can the grease? Can we, keep one of those old, oil jugs and keep it underneath your sink, and every time just, dump some oil in there, and then at the end we could dispose of it once it's full.
So as your local realtor, I would say Elrod Septic taught me something about 14 years ago, which is the presidential election, pump your tank. I won't give you the exact wording of why he said that, but if you remember presidential elections and you remember your septic tank at the same time, you'll get the gist. But if you're pumping out your septic tank on a regular basis, one, it's being checked. Mm-hmm. Two, you're looking at drain field capacity. You're looking at everything else that we're talking about now. There are also filters in those systems, and those need to be addressed and cleaned and taken care of, because those are the at-home type systems that you're dealing with on a larger scale at Public Works, right?
Yes.
So if we do this combination of the two, and we get people to do a better maintenance job on their septic tanks at home, which you should be doing anyway, because it will make the tank last longer. It will get it checked out to make sure there isn't anything. If there is something small that they can repair, they will. So the longevity of your tank, the longevity of your drain field, everything is the healthy side of a working environment for a septic tank. And that translates over into Public Works now. And I want to talk a little bit about the nitrates and different things that you were talking about, because we have this little monster out in the Gulf of Mexico, and it's not hurricanes, but it is hurricane season, so keep your eyes out. But we have a little thing called red tide, and they keep telling us we're feeding the monster, which we are.
That's yes.
And so talk a little bit about the red tide and the effects that if citizens were to clamp down, and I'll go with the Frank Lama side of things. We have good participation. Is everyone participating? No. If everyone did, could we make a bigger impact? Yes, we could with recycling. This is the same topic. We can make an impact and we can do this, but we have to have people helping do this. And this is what here. Can you talk about that combination?
Yeah. So, I mean, it was kind of like I said earlier, where everything is kind of everything flows out to the Gulf. Everything flows, so there have been improvements as far as the state level, and some of the wastewater discharge permits that changed during Senate Bill 712 is there is no longer a surface water discharge. They're getting away from that. So the runoff into those for a municipal aspect of it is no longer going to be permitted. They're phasing those systems out. They have to do a deep well injection. They have to do advanced treatment. So they're meeting 10 milligrams or less of nitrogen for discharge into a injection well, or they can meet public access reclaim, so which is an even lower level to do that. So, and you'll see I know Charlotte County has started a One Water Coalition to where it's looking at all aspects of the water, especially with the impacts on Charlotte Harbor and how everything is kind of funneling to that harbor, because it's Englewood, it's Venice is right on the water, and Northport, Fort Myers, it's all the coastal communities that are really being looked at, and how we're discharging and how the runoffs are affecting our environment.
And we are there's
Yes.
there is.
Well, and
Go
it's
ahead.
it's going to happen because our population's growing, and we have to do our best and get out and educate to minimize those impacts as much as possible. And we have to figure out the best method forward. And that's where I said some of those capital improvement projects may be needed to stop that or to limit that. And we have to pay that focus to those areas on our improvement programs so we can minimize it with the growth that's happening in our population in this area. I just know that, Northport has grown probably 50,000 in population just since I started working here.
Yep.
So it's gone up quite a bit.
We are feeling the impact of the growth. Robin Sanvin she was on Friday, and she said it would be, in one of her comments would be, it would be nice to have all of our infrastructure done ahead of time. Well, I think every city in the country would love to have that too. And I don't know that anybody's actually performing that. That's a really high mark, but I love the fact that she's thinking that way, because she's making other people think about stuff. We cannot
Well,
we cannot be
yeah,
perfect on our infrastructure, but we can be perfect on attempting to get the messaging out the right way, so that people can help mitigate a lot of the dumping of the fogs down the drain. And to do that, if we cut it at 50% because we're focused on that, that's a huge impact, isn't it?
that's a big impact. Absolutely, that's a big impact. So, and yeah, like it's got to be controlled growth, and you have to manage that. Nobody has a crystal ball. Nobody knows what's going to happen. We saw that during the downturn of the economy back in 2008, to where everything was booming and then it leveled out and dropped. So, you got to kind of manage it and watch it carefully, but you do want to try to stay ahead of it as best you can. And I think I mean, we see the construction of a lot of roads going on. We see Price Boulevards happening now. Hillsborough, they're making improvements along there. Cranberry. So there's things that are actually happening to improve the overall growth of the city. Was it ahead of the growth that happened? No, but it's kind of going along with the growth because the trends have been there to support that.
Right. I agree with you, because the truth is we actually, if you go back and you look at the history of Northport real quick, a lot of our infrastructure was in. We had our roads before we had houses. We still have them.
Mhm.
If you go out towards 75, towards the Alita Blade, there's still houses, or no houses on those roads that are there. So was our infrastructure in before? Yes. Were our water infrastructures in before we all got here? Yes, they were. And now they're 60 plus years old. And so we could go through a list of check marks of things that we are addressing as a growing city. That just puts us in the category of a growing city. I don't know that there's anybody else out there that's struggling. But the one thing I'm going to go back to real quick is experience, and your experience. Other people in the department with that experience also know that if it gets past us and goes up to the next level, whether it be state mandates or federal mandates, those are never good choices.
No, no, they're really not. They don't give you, they give you hard deadlines. They give you what the financial impacts, fines, fees, whatever you want to call them, that you're going to pay, and it, they don't care if you have the money. You don't have the money at that point. You're going to make it happen, and it just compounds from there. So you don't want to get to that level to where your hands forced and you're creating that consent order, and you're limiting your ability to operate and maintain. Now, I will say we did have our referendums that went out, and the ability to not borrow money. We're the only city in the state
Great.
that cannot borrow money. So that has a huge impact on how we operate. We've completed a master plan for water, and we're finalizing our master plan for wastewater. And the initial water master plan shows $81 million of system improvements that need to happen, which if it's material sizes, pipe sizes that need to be upsized or upgraded to meet the overall hydraulic flow of the system, those are all things that we have to account for and plan for. And it takes time to save up that money to do that. And so we are being very careful because at some point we have to upsize our pumps in our system to where we can maintain the same pressure and flows we have today in the future. We have to keep up with that growth and that demand that's out there. And these are, $81 million is a big ticket to look at in a 10-year window, and how we're going to save that money to make those improvements needed to meet those demand projections.
Well,
So,
and the voting population, they all do that here in Northport. Everybody's got a savings account of $81 million because no one buys anything borrowing money ever. So I'm jokingly saying these things because it's almost catastrophic to actually tell a city you have to save up every dime, because and I'm not talking ridiculous here, but with the amount of growth that's happening here and how we have to manage things, the citizens of Northport need to understand that borrowing is a value, and it comes at a cost if you don't do it, because saving up $81 million over time.
Yeah, that's just the water side.
Yeah,
we haven't got the final numbers on the wastewater side yet.
We're talking one little facet of it all, and then we're not talking about everything in the city either. So managing crises and managing growth, expectations of water pressure, all these things, and then getting told you have to save up every penny, you have to pay cash for everything. Well, that's all well and good if you're at home and you're doing it your way, but it's an entire city, and the growth is going to happen here one way or the other, and the regulation, it's going to come if we don't keep up with it, and we're not going to like who it's coming from. So it's going to cost us either later or current. And I use Price Boulevard as my go-to right now because we've put that project on delay for 10 to 15 years. And we haven't doubled the cost. We haven't tripled the cost. We haven't gone 5 times the cost. We've done so much more than that with the cost of that road now. So taking all of just the common sense type stuff into consideration. When the next time these things come out onto a referendum, please read thoroughly. Just don't do no's because everybody told you to say no. Saying no with some understanding of the cause and effect of what you're saying no to, there is something to be said about that. And I understand we had 5 difficult decisions on that ballot. I'm just telling you that there are 2 of them for sure that I'd be jumping up and down. This is one of them. The transfer station is the other. Those two things, the lack of being able to borrow, is almost tying everybody at City Hall's hands behind their back and saying, make it work and figure out your budgets.
Right, because in order to move
don't raise our taxes. Go ahead.
Right, because in order to move a project forward, it has to be fully funded. We have to have the funds available to even put it out to bid, to start the process. We have to have a fully funded project to begin. So you're right, you have to save up year over year over year to try to compile the money to do the work.
And these are not small projects. These are major projects.
Yes. Oh yeah. These are some major projects. When you're talking about, upsizing lines for hydraulic capacity, but it's not only that, it impacts the entire region. It impacts your insurance. It impacts our fire flows. It impacts the entire system. It impacts our ISO rating from the fire department. If we can't keep up with those demands and our fire flow ratings, that is ultimately impacted, because the more and more straws you put into the system, the lower your pressure and volume is going to be, unless you actually right size your pumps, right size your water mains. There's a hydraulic flow factor that has to be calculated, which we got out of our master plan. So, and I know I'm just talking water now, just because I haven't seen the final on our wastewater yet, but there's a lot of improvements on the wastewater side as well. Some of the old clay pipes that are in the ground from general development that are, they're cracked, the ground shifts, and, every time it rains and then we go through a dry spell, the ground softens and then hardens and it cracks those pipes. Those clay pipes do not flex, do not bend, they crack. And that's where we have our I&I issues. That's where we have, so those have to be either lined or replaced. And those are all part of our, so we look at every asset, every type of component. We know what type of materials we have in the system. We know the life expectancy of those. We know some of the water age. We still have some asbestos cement pipe out there that, we are working on phasing that out. So we do pull asbestos cement samples in our water system just to make sure we're staying in compliance. We have to report that to the Department of Environmental Protection. So all those things are accounted for and are regulatory, but we have to have a plan of how we're going to move forward and make that better and expand the system with also improving technology, improving the material, the type, bigger, to maintain the same level of service.
So we've got just a short period of time with the development that comes in. How does that affect how, like the Welland Park area? I know it's got its own water treatment plant. We did not have that before they built it. Mm-hmm. And we were at capacity across the board, I believe, with supplying water and doing different things up in that region until that plant got built. That has taken a lot of the pressure off of our water treatment plants, right? Yes. But how do you guys calculate out the transition from trees and no housing to Welland Park today, with restaurants and downtowns and other stores and restaurants moving into the area and now being on our system? How do you guys look at that in totality, and who pays for the bigger pumps, or do we have that now, and did we plan for that?
Well, in a development, because they're a district, they would pay for the expansion of the facility or their water allocation needed for their development. Because it's continuing to grow. They are, they're looking at that annexation on the south end. So they have to provide their water source for that. So development has to pay for their development. And with that district in there, they have to be able to treat and maintain and produce the right amount of water for their entire development. So if they grow, they have to provide how they're going to grow with their water and wastewater to produce the water they need for their development and also treat the wastewater that's going to come out of that.
So that's not you sitting in your office going, yeah, we can do that. We have that. They're actually number one at participating at that, correct?
Oh yes, they're fully involved with it. It is a partnership back and forth with the city and a developer. So we're on the same page. We're communicating the same, because we're running the plant and we're reporting on what we're seeing. So the plant that was the Southwest wastewater plant that was built is a 2 million gallon a day plant. We're already averaging over 900,000 a day. So we're about half capacity to that plant right now. So and they're still building, there's still development happening.
Not
So
going to take as long to reach the other half.
no, it's not going to take. But we've already been in conversations with the developer. They provided a master plan for their community, so they know it has to be expanded. They know they're going to need more wastewater, and there's rules behind that as far as the trigger levels. When you're at 80%, you have to be in design of your facility for expansion, and there's a certain timeline to have it online so you meet the actual capacity within that development.
And those are conversations you guys are having upfront before these developments even start. And
Yes.
then you're transitioning. I'm sure there's phases of everything that you're talking about with the Welland Parks of the world. We've got more growth that's going to be happening down in the Toledo Blade corridor, and those are all projects that are managed the same way, correct?
Yes, they're similar. We have capacity at our existing wastewater plant now. So they're able to tie in. They have to do some system improvements for their development, because whatever they develop, whatever it affects downstream, and if there's an issue, they have to fix those issues for them to develop. So we give them, hey, your development has this impact on the water, wastewater, and these are the issues that need to be addressed. So we give them, we use our hydraulic modeling, and a lot of our really our run times, our data. We have SCADA that gives us trending, so we could see everything real time and we could trend it out. So we then put that into a model, and it gives us the numbers and at what flows trigger, hey, there's going to be an issue here. So then we take their calculations and their ERC and their impact, and we let them know at this level, because they could technically build the first 500 homes and not have an impact. But then they build 501, we have a problem. We have an impact here. We need this addressed before you construct that 501st home. So those are the type of conversations we have, and we address and we get ahead of it. And it's a lot of behind the scenes, way ahead before you even see these developments of those conversations that are happening.
So, I know we kind of dove into this today, and we're giving this overview of everything. I really think having the hands-on feel of what you're talking about and being on site, I really want to do that really soon, and get it out to the public so they can actually see it. I know our communications team, they do a fantastic job with their shorts and different things like that. Being on site for 55 minutes is a totally different walkthrough than a short 5-minute video. Those are educational bits that the communication team really works hard at trying to get the information directly to you, the consumers, every day. Please check them out on Facebook, comment on them, ask questions. The communications team, and Mike and his staff, they would love to have communications with citizens who have questions, thoughts, anything that we've talked about. If you need more clarification, don't count on me to say something for you. Ask Mike, ask the team. They're here to assist us in understanding what this is all about so that we can be a conduit for them to the other citizens that aren't paying attention, so we can go out and talk to them and educate them. That's how Frank Lama's done it. That's how you're doing it today. That's how we do roads and drainage. That's how we get things done. Communication is a big key to this, and I know your commitment to it. It's very strong, and you want to get this out there, and you want to make an impact. When do you think we should do that? Do you think it should be in December?
We could set something up anytime. I have a meeting tomorrow with Madison and our communication team. Just specifically talk about a campaign on the fats, oils, and grease program and putting more messaging out. So I will talk to her tomorrow and we'll get something coordinated. December is just fine.
If you want to pick a Friday in December, let's we'll do a special one on Friday from 3:05 to 4 o'clock.
Okay.
We'll do it on site. So you pick your Friday and I'll be there.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right.
I look
And then
forward to that.
we'll get some advertising out. We'll do some pushes out and we'll get that done. And I'm sure that the communications team at City Hall will help too. They are fantastic at what they're doing. Citizens of Northport, if you have any questions, please call Mike. You want to give your contact information, Mike?
Yeah, my phone is you can call 941-240-8000. And if you have any specific questions or anything, just call that line. Just let them know you want to speak to me, and I will return your phone call. I'll have any conversation that we need to have. If you want to, if you live in an HOA and you think it's a good idea to hey, let's bring this up at an HOA meeting, invite me. I'll come. I'll speak about it. I'll talk about it. I think we really were impacted a little bit of that with COVID, and we kind of got used to some Teams meetings to where it's less in person, but I'm a more in-person guy, and I would love to come to your HOA meetings and talk and go through anything with utilities. I know Frank and I have done several HOA meetings together, so I try to bring as much energy as Frank, but he's tough to compete with.
I'm going to say it out loud. Understanding the flow of your sewer is a big thing. Okay. and it's just not throwing it down the drain and forgetting about it. Whatever you're putting down your drain, it affects what you have. If you're putting grease and vegetables and you have a disposal in your kitchen and you have a septic tank, remove the disposal itself and then stop putting things down your septic tank. If you talk to any septic guy, they're going to tell you exactly that, with no uncertain terms. It's the same thing, other than the disposal side of it with the city and city water and city sewer. Please take in consideration what you're doing to affect not only the workflow at Public Works, but the environment that we're desperately trying to keep in the most natural state that we can. As a tree city, and Alice White would love me for mentioning her too. Our tree lady loves her trees, loves the environment. There's a lot of people here that do, and this is a good way for the citizens to start talking about the environment in a way that we can actually make a huge impact on the tax dollars. Michael, you have anything to add?
Yeah, no, I'm right with you with the trees. Love the trees. Trees provide water, resources to the area. I would encourage everybody to plant trees. It keeps the ground moist and saturated. It provides shade. It helps the environment overall. So trees are very important to our watershed and what we do here in Northport. So I'm 100% behind you on that, and I support trees, and it helps with what we need for water and water quality. Trees are a filter, so
Yep.
they do filter a lot. So plant trees. I'm 100% for that. It only helps our water quality and our environment.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time, Michael. I appreciate you very much, and I look forward to hearing from you after your meeting tomorrow, and we'll get something on the books for December.
All right. Sounds good, John. Thank you.
All right. Have a blessed day. You guys have a blessed day. We'll see you on, may have something pop up on Friday. I'm not going to tell you yet, but if I do, it'll be posted. If not, I'll see you next Monday. Talk to you soon. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.